Hi guys, welcome back. We are Swordwind. This is the Charlotte branch of the New York Historical Fencing Association, and in this video we're going to be talking about the mechanics of a right oberhau or Zornhau. Before we begin, let me say that Zornhau is one of those terms whose meaning may have changed over kind of the 200 or so lifespan of KDF. It is the sort of, if you want to get really nitpicky, people can get into long arguments about whether a Zornhau is simply an oberhau from your dominant side, whether it is any diagonal oberhau. So is this, me being a right-handed person, did I just cut a Zornhau? Is the Zornhau a particular application of a right, of either only your dominant side oberhau or any diagonal oberhau? I do have opinions about those things, as does kind of NIFA in general, but they are beyond the scope of this video. For present purposes, let me just note that I am aware that not everybody uses the word Zornhau the way I'm going to be doing it on this channel. And second, let me be clear, just so that there's no miscommunication. When I say Zornhau, I mean specifically a diagonal oberhau from your dominant side. So I would call that a Zornhau or a right oberhau. This, on the other hand, I would only call a left oberhau. Now that kind of our terms are established, let's talk about how the cut is done and how it can go wrong. I apologize, I had intended to append to the end of this video some examples of me cutting against tatami. Unfortunately, the tatami supply in the eastern United States is a little thin right now, so those videos are going to have to come separately. For now, I'm going to step a little further away from the tree there. Starting in right Vomtag, we're going to look at this in two ways. One, from sort of a true right Vomtag with the left foot advanced, and one having taken the step already. This is, as I've mentioned before, the way we tend to practice cuts in NIFA and therefore in Swordwind, with the step already taken. The reason for that is because we want to train our bodies and our brains to be moving our hips deliberately, and as we reinforce those neural pathways, we're working towards being able to twist the hips with greater and greater force, and therefore improve the power of our cuts. Cuts, as we've said before, being powered from the hands, from the core, not really from the arms, except to the extent that the arms allow us to reach full extension. So, sequence of events, as we've discussed in previous videos, but just to lay it all out here in one: finger squeeze, twist the hips, extend. Obviously not so mechanically, but I do encourage people, especially my students, especially people who are just learning how longswords actually operate, to literally be this mechanistic about it in order to drill this sequence of this order of operations into your brain. Squeeze, hips, extend, squeeze, hips, extend, squeeze, hips, extend, and it becomes more and more fluid as you practice it. Especially starting the cut with the finger squeeze makes a surprisingly large amount of difference when you get yourself in front of a target. Turn, extend, then finger squeeze is something that can be done. I'm not going to say that it's not, and in fact is something that you want to kind of be able to work towards as part of being able to cut with effectively with less and less motion. However, I don't want people to get it into their heads that that's something that's kind of a point that you're going to reach in a couple of weeks of practice, or even a couple of months or a year or two. Start, finger squeeze, hips, and extend. One of the things you'll notice as I make this more and more fluid is that the fact that this squeeze starts my sword moving forward, and the fact that the point of balance of the sword is up here, is that this, simply the fact that I'm casting this tip forward, wants to drag my hands forward. The role of my arm muscles, aside from squeezing my fingers, of course, because you don't really have muscles in these fingers. The point of squeezing the arm, the point of the arm muscles is simply to guide that extension out. We twist our hips immediately after starting this finger squeeze, because that also casts this weight forward, and we let our arms make sure that that goes out to full extension rather than just kind of flopping down like this. Let me mention, by the way, we've talked about full extension a lot on this channel, and we're going to continue to do so, but when I talk about full extension, I do not mean locked arms. If you hit something with locked arms, you're likely to mess up your elbows, whether it's a tatami mat, a pool noodle, anything, a water bottle, anything else you might be cutting, or certainly a pel or a sparring partner, something that your sword is not going to pass through. At least I hope your swords are not passing through your sparring partners. Full extension does not mean locked arms. Never lock your arms. Besides the fact that it's likely to mess up your elbows, that's also going to slow all of your subsequent actions down. So, ways that this can go wrong. You'll notice that I'm doing my best to kind of pretend that there is a rod running through the top of my head, down my neck, through my pelvis and into the floor that I'm just kind of turning on. In other words, I'm trying to keep my torso straight as I cut. This, any kind of lean, whether it's kind of hunching the shoulders forward like this, or literally kind of bending from the waist in order to get that last little inch of, oh, I've just missed him. The problem with that is that it screws with the circle that our sword is making, right? If I turn, keep the center of rotation in my core, then the radius of my cut is all of this plus all of my blade. The more I kind of lean my body forward, or even backwards, as people sometimes do if they're cutting while retreating from somebody, that changes the number of vectors that are going on, and I'm not getting a nice, clean, I'm essentially robbing myself of radius and of rotational radius, and therefore of cutting power. Now, that's not to say that a cut like that can't make somebody bleed. It might, depending on the situation, it might be enough to end the fight. However, when we are training, and we're training in a kind of non-stressful environment, there's no reason to train for a less effective cut than we could possibly make. This is not just the cut that you want to make when everything is calm and you're not fighting for your life. It's also the cut that you want your brain to just like pull out of nowhere, even when it's basically shut down because it's terrified and you're acting off of instinct. You want your brain to pull out an ideal cut, not a less ideal cut, because you would much rather have your brain automatically do this and then find out, oh, hey, wow, fight's already over, than to have your brain automatically do this and realize that your opponent is still standing. So again, squeeze, hips, extend. Now in terms of edge alignment, this is the path that your sword takes is 45 degrees. You can try and angle your sword 45 degrees if that is helpful for you. My personal suggestion is that you simply think of keeping the edge down. You will probably not literally end up doing this. You will probably end up doing that. It's loud out here, so I don't think you can hear my tachikaze. If we were indoors, or you can just look up the sword wind video, the tachikaze video, for an example of this. Mostly, and that is kind of ultimately the most useful advice I can give you, is to find yourself a quiet space where you can practice and play with different blade orientations until you hear that nice whip crack sword wind. That's when you know you've gotten your cut right, when you have actually done the cut. That's the feeling in your hands, in your arms, that you want to memorize and train your body to repeat over and over again. That really is kind of the best advice I can give you in terms of learning how to orient your edge correctly, is find a quiet place, listen with your ear. So we've talked about, just to make it explicit, we do, although we don't want to lock our arms, we do want to cast our tip forward, both for tactical reasons and to maximize our rotational radius, and therefore maximize our momentum, and therefore maximize our cutting power. We want to cut full out there, not just down. We want our sword to be, our pommel to be ending in line with our belly button, right about in line with your pubic bone, not out here to the hips, certainly not out here to the other hip. In the center, no arm. Once you've cast your arms forward from about this point on, neither of these elbows should ever be bent again until you're done with the cut. Elbows are obviously bent here, out of necessity. Here, I've reached full extension, and I'm going to continue to be at full extension all the way down. Here, I've ended the cut, my elbows are still at full extension, and now I can move into whatever my follow-up motion is. Now, when we do all of this with a step, the order of operations does not change, but we need to be a little more detailed. Squeeze. Start the step, finish the step, finish the cut. Start the cut, start the step, finish the step, finish the cut. Start, finish, finish. Start, finish, finish. Start, finish, finish. If you are one of those people who insists on kind of trying to apply George Silver's concept of true and false times to KDF, then frankly, don't do that. Silver was not writing about KDF, and I'm not entirely sure why people continue to insist on doing that. If it makes you happy, you can say that this is kind of Silverian, in that you start the cut with your hands, start and finish your step, and then you finish the cut. If that doesn't comport with your interpretation of Silver, that's fine. I don't care. What it does comport with is the advice we are given in the KDF manuals, which is that you follow the cut with a step. Now, how is that possible? How is it possible to follow a cut? Like, we're not doing that, presumably, and we're not doing that, because that's not following the cut with a step either. So how are we to interpret this advice? Start the cut with your finger squeeze. Follow it with the step. Finish the cut. Start the cut. Take your step, finish the step. Finish your cut. If we make that a little less mechanistic, you'll see that my sword is always moving forward. My sword starts moving forward before my body is moving forward, and it is moving forward after my body has stopped moving forward. Therefore, at no point am I moving towards the opponent without presenting an imminent threat. If, even from right now, the fact that my sword has started moving forward, in a forward direction, should indicate to them, hey, cut incoming, you have to respond to that. Cut incoming, respond. What I don't want to do is say, aha, cut incoming, oh, I'm already dead, but I was going to throw a cut. And I certainly don't want to throw a cut without getting close to somebody and then go, aha, I have followed the step with a cut. So, now that we've kind of established that order of operations, I do want to point out, you want to be grounded before your sword hits somebody. You start your sword moving before you cut, before you step. You finish the step, and then your sword impacts somebody. The reason you want to do that is because your ability to power the step with, your ability to power your hip rotation through your sword is dependent on having 2 feet on the ground. If I land with my foot up in the air like this, I am no more capable of putting hip rotation into the cut than if I were cutting like this, right? I can literally turn here, but I'm not going to be able to put as much power in as if I had 2 points of contact with the ground allowing me to turn. Now, is that difficult? Is it difficult to, difficult or complicated to start the cut, start the step, finish the step, cut, to do this instead of this, where kind of your sword lands as your foot lands? Yes, yes, that is hard. It is much easier to start the cut and kind of everything comes down as you almost sort of stomp onto the ground, or at least as you contact the ground. That is the easy thing to do because it gives your brain fewer things to have to coordinate. I think the Lichtenauer answer to that is so what? There are a lot of things about proper weapon operation that are you have to kind of train your body to do. This is one of them, right? It is not conceptually difficult. Start, start, finish, finish. Start, start, finish, finish. It is non-intuitive and something you're going to have to train into your body. Fine, go ahead, train it into your body. Get yourself in front of a Pell and make sure that you start before you hit your target and not hit before you finish your step. That's all there is to that. The other thing you want to make sure, of course, when you have a step involved is that you are twisting your hips. In the same way that we would not cut without a step, like this, with no hip twist. Rather, we would cut like this. You want to make sure that you're not just, that you're, when you're in guard, your hips are pointed off this way, and that they end pointed this way, giving you about 90 degrees of, 90-ish degrees of rotation of hip twist that you are powering your cut with. So I don't want to be, for instance, squared up to my opponent and simply step closer to them as I cut. I want to make sure that my hips actually twist all the way through that cut. I realize that we're talking about footwork here without having put up a dedicated footwork video. I will get to that. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about is your sword ending position. Of course, we have talked about this in previous videos, but when I am cutting from left to right, my sword should end up pointed from left to, when I'm cutting from right to left, my sword should end up pointed from right to left. I do not want to end up cutting like this, where my sword is pointed forward. I certainly don't want to end up pointed like this, but anything that crooks the cut, that makes it crooked, is going to screw with the plane of the blade through the, kind of through space. There is no reason I can't cut crooked with a passing step, but the mechanics for that are different. For a simple Zornhau, I say simple Zornhau. Zornhau, of course, is one of the kind of, it is both a simple peasant strike and no longer a simple peasant strike, as I have recently heard that verse, that gloss translated. I want to make sure that my blade is pointed in this plane and not in this plane. So, real quick, once more, without a step, squeeze, hips extend, squeeze, hips extend, squeeze, hips extend, squeeze, hips extend. With a step, squeeze, all of the lower body stuff, extend. Start, start, finish, finish. Start, start, finish, finish. Start, start, finish, finish. I hope this is useful for people. When I can get some tatami mats and some good cutting footage, I will put up a video of that, both cutting without a step and cutting with a step, and I'll put a description of that in the, I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. In the meantime, we'll be back soon with more videos, and I hope this was helpful.